background, I think I might have mentioned it a few times. I used to be a teacher prior to this. I taught first grade and I taught sixth grade. So, two complete, different genres of kids, different life skills. They're all in different places in their life. Um, so my wife is also a teacher. She's a teacher she works with kids who are on the spectrum essentially. So she's kind of an inclusion teacher for teachers. So she works with teachers, and then herself, she works with the kids as well. So, something that we've been talking about is something that's been brought up to us. Hey, you guys ever thought about opening stuff, things like that? I've tossed the idea around a few times, but nothing really concrete as of right now. I'm pretty comfortable where I am. But a few parents have complimented me. Hey, you ever thought about a startup or a kickoff or anything like that? So just some passing conversations. Like I said, I'm never scared to have a conversation with people, but
Sure.
that's kind of how far that's gone.
Got it. So just to give you a little background of like how much I've worked on this project, about 8 years ago, I graduated chiropractic school with a bunch of other soccer players, college soccer players. And I was like, man, we learned all this stuff. We didn't learn none of this when we were coming up. Like our youth soccer teams, our high school teams, our college teams. College teams get a little more into it. Like, are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating enough of a balanced diet? Are you working outside of practice on your physical body, your speed, your agility? But just to think about how there's an opportunity there in the minds of the parents of, like, for example, me now bringing a 2-year old to a soccer class. If there was like an at-home curriculum, obviously it's limited and basic for 2 to 4 year olds, but it gets more relevant when you're like 8 to 12 year olds
Hmm.
are on the travel team, on the select team. Their parents are paying additional money than you would expect for like just lessons. They're paying a lot more for them to be on these teams, and it's like there's no curriculum for the parents, the players, and the coaches to really orient around how to get through this in the most optimal way possible. What is best practices as far as prepping for a game from a food standpoint or from a mindset standpoint. So anyway, just letting you know, I've thought a lot about it of like, could this be a consultation service where you're hired from a team to come in and consult with the coach or consult with the parents? Or could this just be a program that it's like, hey, buy these materials, like this is an at-home program that parents can watch, and like it gives them lessons to like go over with their kids. But anyway, I'm just trying to throw that to you because obviously you're a great communicator. Obviously, having some diversity in the project would matter a lot.
Hmm.
But yeah, just this whole concept of how do we utilize the game of soccer as a sport, as a vehicle, to transform lives, to bring families together more, to help parent kid bonding, or to help parents feel more included with the coaches or more on the same page. Like the highest team that I ever played for, it was like we would have to drive an hour to the practice, and the coach wasn't really like cool with my parents like that. You know what I mean? And I think
Hmm.
that with just like one little like asking questions of like, what are your expectations for this team, it would give the coach some understanding as to like what parents are expecting, or give parents an understanding of what coaches are expecting, things like that. Anyway, what do you think about all that?
I definitely think there's a need for families to kind of connect with the coaches. One of my big things, me personally, as you know, I try to talk to my families as much as possible. Um, let them know that hey, if your 2 year old or 4 year old, whatever, is not getting the curriculum, it's not the end of the world. It's not like your kid's bad at it. It's a growth mindset type of thing. Most of my kids grow into like where you see them at. Um, One of the reasons I really like working with the age group I work with is they grow so fast, they catch on so quick. 2 weeks ago, one kid will not be able to do any of the warm-ups. Then 2 weeks later, oh, they can at least do up and downs. They can do a soccer stop. I think there's always going to be a disconnect between a parent and their coach. One is their caregiver, and then one is trying to teach them something, and sometimes those butt heads, and that is how it is. There's a different teaching method for everything, but I think giving the tools to both of them to find common ground is definitely a lot better than, oh, I've been coaching, I know what I'm doing, and then the parents like, well, this is my kid, I know my kid as well, and that usually causes some kind of friction between it and the kid. Most of the time, it's just like, hey, I just want to get out there. I enjoy both of I enjoy mom and dad. I enjoy coach. I just want to get out there and have a good time. But they're pretty privy, especially when they get older. They catch on to those type of things pretty fast. So I think having tools is a good bridge for both of them to find a good place to stand on.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that the creation of tools, as you just described, would be a lot of work, or do you think that it would be as simple as just like sitting down and brainstorming and then putting together a couple of worksheets or a couple of handouts and putting it on a platform? Or do you think it would require like actually thinking through, hey, let's do presentations for parents, let's do presentations for coaches, where it's like maybe 10 or 15 minutes, like this is the topic of the week, these are the handouts associated with the topic, and like the outcomes we're going for is that your player gets exposed to these things, and that you can clarify where you're at for the coach or the parent. What do you think, like structure wise, how hard would that be to create, and like where do you think is the sweet spot as far as like which age group to maybe start with? Like what would be in your eyes maybe the best age group to start with, and then either work up older or work down younger?
I do think it would be a lot of work. Anything that's worth anything is put a lot of work into. You can always tell something cheap versus something that has had some time, effort, blood, and sweat put into it. I do think for anything to be successful, it needs to have a lot of work to it. I think being clairvoyant with the families as well, letting them know what this is also a lot of work because everyone has a different background, especially in the Bay Area. Everyone is 12 different things at once here. So I do think it is a lot of work, making the tools and making the tools accessible. We can make the tools, and let's say we make the tools for only like soccer player parents. Then you have, some guy who's like, oh, I play baseball my whole life. My kid's interested in soccer. I don't know anything about what you guys are talking about. I know baseball stuff, but like, if you're telling me my kid needs to do extra cardio to do a scissor, I don't even know what a scissor is. Or, if they got to eat certain things for endurance, my kid used to do strength training or whatever, like something like that. I
Yeah.
do think it's more work than just, all right, let's just do some general things, put it down, get it out there. But I also, on the flip side of that, do think that there needs to be a prototype and honest feedback. I think something should be put out there. And you get feedback from the families, both soccer player and not soccer player parents. Um, like I said, yeah, there'll be some work to it. There's always gonna be some work to it if anything's gonna be worth anything. Um, but yeah, as far as the age group, I think the I guess I worked with sixth graders a lot. Um, and sixth graders, they're catching that teen phase. So maybe the 8 olds are really good. That's a really good starting point. Um, and then the importance of it, I would probably go up first and then down. Because when you go down, then you have to work on more of the social emotional mindset of the child versus the actual why we're doing it. If you work up and you give a student the why, then they take off with it. Hey, get this amount of sleep so your body can do this, and now you can do this. And most kids are like, okay, that makes sense. A plus B and C. For a 3-year-old, like when I do bubbles, and I'm like, all right, parents, this is for like, hand-eye coordination, and I'm talking to you guys because the kids, they don't care nothing about that. They see Coach Joe with some bubbles, and that's it. It's bubble time. Versus, oh, I need to stop, watch for my friends, and then pop the bubbles.
Nah, you're right. I think, I don't know. I'm relying on your experience, but I think, yeah, 8 years old is probably where they're able to start wrapping their head around why structures exist in, so the 3 pillars that I'm envisioning for this program is you got your fitness training, your soccer specific training, and then your wellness training. And I think that's really helpful to try and lay out some progressions and not expect everything all at once, but to start allowing people to move through them, kind of like DIY, go as fast as you want, but this is like the rudimentary, like eat 5 fruits and vegetables a day. This is the next level, is like what's in your fruits and vegetables that gives you energy, but yeah, I appreciate where you're coming from. All I'm saying is that when you work as a team, you can go further than if you're working by yourself. I've been working on this project somewhat by myself for a while. I've had these conversations with other people that are soccer players, even soccer coaches, but chiropractors like me. But like, they don't really, kind of like what you said, is like you're comfortable, you don't really have a lot of time to devote and dedicate, but as a side project that's maybe 6 months of 1 hour a week, or 1 hour every other week, or couple hours every couple weeks, whatever, it could potentially grow into something. That's all. I'm just trying to put it out there. I think working with an educator would be very valuable. And ultimately, I was just hyped on the fact that I had soccerwellness.com, like the domain name.
Nice.
But the more I think of it, the more I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of growth that could come, like spreading the message of healthy living, or empowering families to be better or whatever through the game of soccer. I don't know. So yeah, what's your feeling on like the wellness, the fitness, and the soccer specific, like position specific, or that kind of thing, like strategy, and there's just so much that goes into it, right?
So I think the fact that always breaking it down to like a 3 of something or 2 of something, giving them like this is the main thing, is always. Oh, yes. 1 second, sorry.
We're gonna have to let Rudy pick that office right there.
Okay.
Over low.
Okay.
So if you guys can have your coaches maybe go to that office.
Okay. Yeah. Can we get the key to that one? I gave it back when we moved over here. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you. No, I gave that one to David. Thank you, Brad. Sorry about that. Busy man. But I think having like a pillar system is really good. This way, if they struggle in one area but they're proficient in another one, they won't feel like they're failing a whole program. So I think breaking the pillar down into 3 specific things that are congruent, they can go together, is a really good idea. As someone so I grew up in Richmond, South Richmond to be specific, but I grew up eating a whole bunch of hot chips, McDonald's, Annihilators, what have you. But when I would have a game or something, I played baseball, football, and soccer a lot growing up. All of a sudden I'd be like, oh, I got to eat clean. I got to eat clean all of a sudden so I can like perform well. When the reality was I should have just been eating clean the whole time. But, you tell that to a teenager, they don't care. But like there was no why for it. Like I was always told, oh, drink water, do this before the game. But it wasn't until I got older where I was like, okay, there's benefits to this. So I think breaking it down into these things where, especially if you give them a visual and now they know, they can see, why we're doing this thing or why I should do this thing versus trying to scramble on it, is a really good idea. A pillar system is really good because, soccer positions are completely different than like baseball positions, anything like teaching them why they have to be there as well is a really good idea. My god brother is more of the soccer guy than I did. I was a little late bloomer to soccer, but I picked up on it once I picked up on it. But like when I first got out there, I had every other sport mentality. I was like, okay, I gotta do this and this, and soccer is a lot of endurance versus baseball. Not too much endurance in that one. Football only endurance if I got the ball or if I'm blocking someone like that. Soccer is you're constantly moving. Something's always happening, even if it looks like nothing's happening. Something should be happening. So I think breaking it down to like positions, why you eat well, and then like the other pillar. I think that's a really good idea.
Fitness is the other pillar. Is like
like, why we should like strength train, but why should you work out? You don't want to. Oh, I already did my workout and blah blah blah, and then now you have a cramp, like something like that. So I do think that's a good idea that it's broken down like that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just putting it out to you. At the end of the day, they're just planting some seeds. I think that there's a real value in just that like direction, and maybe it's because I have a kid now and I'm moving in the direction of like youth sports and realizing that there's no real structure and there's a lot of competitiveness, but there's not necessarily a lot of like, there is a lot of like, hey, as long as we're having fun, it's all good at this age. But as you get older, it's less about having fun and it's more about who's winning. And if you lose, what's the lesson there? But besides that, it's like, you got to be faster, bigger, stronger.
Yeah.
Whatever, So, anyway. All right, well, thank you for listening to where I'm coming from with this. At the end of the day, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I just want you to let you know that I'm throwing this to you. If you want to participate, if you want to get engaged or involved, that's great. If not, it's also all good. I don't have any deadline on this. I'm not trying to release nothing tomorrow or the next month, but I do find it to be a potentially really impactful, but also like lucrative sort of business model, So just putting that out there. You're full-time. You're full-time at the academy, right?
Yeah. Full-time salary. They got me up here. My minimum is 40. Let's be real. I work like 60 hours a week.
Wow. Okay. And that's facilitating the classes.
Because I coach. I facilitate the kickers and the skills program. So I'm in charge of both. And then I have coach training as well. So I train up all the coaches. So I'm also the one doing like the schedules, the emails, all that stuff.
Wow. How high does the age group go in the skills training?
The oldest we take is 13. So my program is technically from 18 months to 13 years old.
Okay.
So essentially I have them their entire childhood until they hit a teenager.
Yeah, that's big. That's huge. And then you're in communication with the nationwide sort of organization. Like I imagine Low Kickers. It's the same company, the Skills Academy and Low Kickers, or different companies?
It's a franchise. I talk to the owners of Kickers all the time. I have a representative. They fly me out to Seattle. Definitely do a lot of networking with people. For better or worse, I'm always in some type of meeting.
Yeah. I got you. I'd just be curious if they would be interested in grabbing this. They probably would, but it probably makes more sense to have it ready so that it's like, if they're grabbing it, at least there's some like intellectual property or whatever protection there.
I was gonna say, the thing about the kicker people is they do a lot of stuff on brand, but they never want to shy away from a conversation or a potential growth opportunity. Specifically, the president of the entire company, his name is Ty. Really good man. One thing I like about him is he tends to remember everyone's first and last names that's in charge of a program, which is impressive because there's over 120 something like kicker programs in the country.
Okay.
And he tends to like remember faces. That for me, that personally makes it worth working with this company, versus just being like, oh, this is Alameda Palladium. I don't know who's there, but that's Alameda Palladium. no,
Yeah,
whenever I talk to him, he's like, "Oh, it's Joe. How you been?" Like, so that's a very good feeling. I like that feeling.
definitely. Definitely. Okay. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you. Appreciate the work you do, and I'll see you. I'll see you soon. I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say you guys got a class tomorrow with Reef. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, anyway, I just food for thought. If nothing else, I know you don't need it, but it might be something that, yeah, I don't know. Like, what's your first initial gut feeling? Is it just like, oh, this is cool, but like, do you? That's kind of your project, or is it like I could? Can you see yourself wanting to be involved? I guess is the question.
So my initial gut is I know personally I can't devote a lot of time to it, but because of my background, I would love to at least consult, at least talk through ideas, help you network, like be more of a tool, something that can help because I'm never oh crap, I deleted that. I never want to, stop anything that's for children education. Again, I grew up in Richmond. My wife's a teacher. I was a teacher. Like I understand the importance of educating the youth, the literally next generation, because they're the ones that have to take the reins after this. And I don't see any negative benefits for not, helping kids do a sport, make their body healthy, whatever it is. I can definitely see myself at least, hey Joe, I got some ideas, or I want to talk about some stuff. I don't mind helping with that type of stuff. It's kind of why I'm in the position where I am, where
Mhm.
I am working like 60 hours here. I could do the bare minimum. I don't have to coach technically. I technically could just sit in my office. I choose to coach, essentially. I choose to coach because I want to. I want to coach. I want to be out there with the families. I don't want to be some name that people email and they never see my face out there. So I like always I coach every day except Friday. So I put myself out there so I can talk to people. Um, and that's kind of how I want to, I want to be a part of anything that's like that in our community because it's needed. It is definitely needed out here.
Just this last question, just as far
Yeah.
as the nuts and bolts of like how you work training coaches, or like I guess does the company give you like kind of like some training on how to engage with parents, some training on how to engage with kids, some different options, or some training on like how to coach coaches, or is it just like
It's
this is
all me and all my assistant coach, assistant director Hector. It's all us, 100%. The franchise tells us, they're like, oh, let's throw some ideas around with other people. There's no pamphlet. There's no instruction manual. Every coach you see out there, all of us, this is all coming from my experience working with youth, working with YMCA's, stuff like that, and my assistant director who's willing to help me, like, pull this stuff together. Like, 'cause I have a lot of high school coaches. I'm trying to teach them how to be a coach, a young adult, a student, because they're still trying to figure themselves out as well.
you
Like
talking
they
about
they
like
don't
this
even know what
guy?
they want to do.
You're talking about like, for example, the kid Adrian who's been in our class, or are you talking
hmm
about like, is he a high school coach, or are you saying that you have other high school coaches that you're working with, or what do you mean by?
So he's in college now. But I have a staff of how many's on this list? I have a staff of 39, and
Oh
I'm
wow,
adding more. I have 39 people under me, and we're adding more. So literally, a lot of my position, like if I'm not up here in the office, or if I'm not doing emails or coaching, I'm looking at what's our training for the week today with my coaches. On Saturday, we push like 400 families in and out this building, and that's just like a Saturday. And on Sunday, it's like 500. There's a lot of them. The weekdays are my favorite because they're very chill. There's not a lot of people coming in and out, but the
right,
weekends is like there's a lot of us here. There's a
okay,
lot of us, a lot of young coaches, a lot of young parents, a lot of young families. So it's my job as their director and as the leader. Not I don't really like being called a boss, but like as their leader to like kind of guide them on what they should do and how they can help the families as well.
super dope. All right. Well, I'm glad that you're our coach, that you've been my coach. I didn't realize how much responsibility you have. It's a lot.
And I
So
try not to like put it out there. Whenever I tell people how much I do, they're like, "And you still coach?" I'm like, "Yeah, I
yeah,
make time for it."
got you. I got you. All right. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the insights. And maybe a month, 2, 3 months out, I might ask for a follow-up conversation with you just to run some things, or maybe even just email you some of the handouts, because I'm a chiropractor, so when somebody comes to my office, they fill out an intake form, and then we have a sit down, and I get clear on what their goals are, what their values are, like why are they here. And I feel like that's probably the same approach that I would take with any program that I was creating, is like take a baseline, get inventory, where are people coming from, what are their backgrounds, what do they want, and then help them get there, help them get what they want. But yeah, anyway, so I might run those by you once they're polished and done, because I've created a couple of them. But anyway, yeah. All right, peace,
All
Joe. I'll
good.
talk to you later, man.
I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Thanks, man.